Imagine a tiny patch of land, barely big enough for a small village, floating in the middle of the ocean. No major cities, no lush farmland, sometimes not even fresh water. And yet, nations have gone to war, spent billions, and risked everything over these seemingly insignificant specks on the map. But why? Why do tiny, often uninhabited islands ignite some of the fiercest geopolitical conflicts in history? At first glance, these islands seem worthless, but look deeper, and you'll find their true power. First, location is everything. Many of these disputed islands sit in strategic waterways, controlling vital shipping lanes. Take the South China Sea, for example. It handles nearly a third of the world's maritime trade. Trillions of dollars worth of goods pass through it every year. Countries like China, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Japan have clashed over these islands not because of the land itself, but because whoever controls the islands can control trade, military access, and resources beneath the waves. And that brings us to the second reason: natural resources. The ocean around these islands often hides vast reserves of oil and gas, enough to fuel economies for decades. The Falkland Islands War between Britain and Argentina wasn't just about history or national pride. The waters around the islands are rich in oil. The same goes for the Arctic, where melting ice is revealing new islands and potential oil fields, triggering a silent struggle between superpowers like the US, Russia, and Canada. Fisheries are another key issue. Control over an island means control over the surrounding waters, and in a world where overfishing has depleted many traditional fishing grounds, access to rich fisheries is an economic lifeline for many nations. China and Japan have had multiple clashes over fishing rights near the Senkaku-Diaoyu Islands, leading to naval standoffs and diplomatic crises. But the battle isn't just about resources or trade, it's also about national identity and pride. Countries see these islands as symbols of sovereignty, a way to assert dominance over a region. Think of Japan and South Korea's dispute over Dokdo Takeshima, or the India-China standoff in the Himalayas over tiny, barren stretches of land. Losing these places, no matter how small, is seen as losing face, a blow to national pride that no leader wants to endure. This is why China has gone as far as building artificial islands in the South China Sea, turning reefs into military outposts armed with airstrips and missile systems. Military presence on these islands isn't just about defense, it's a declaration of ownership, a way for nations to say, "This is ours, and we will fight for it." Another key factor: the law of the sea. According to international maritime law, a country that controls an island also gains control over 200 nautical miles of surrounding waters, known as the Exclusive Economic Zone, EEZ. That's a massive amount of ocean territory filled with fish, minerals, and other resources. By claiming an island, a nation can extend its influence far beyond its actual borders, making even the smallest rock in the sea a geopolitical goldmine. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, was meant to resolve disputes, but many countries interpret the rules differently, leading to ongoing conflicts. History proves how dangerous these disputes can become. The 1982 Falklands War saw Argentina and Britain engage in full-scale combat, leading to hundreds of deaths. In the 1930s, Japan's expansion across the Pacific was partly fueled by its need to secure island territories for resources and military positioning, a move that ultimately escalated into World War II. Even today, tensions over islands remain one of the biggest flashpoints for potential conflicts, from the East China Sea to the Arctic. The Taiwan Strait crisis is another example. Though Taiwan is much larger than a typical disputed island, its strategic location makes it one of the most contested places on Earth, with China viewing it as a breakaway province and the US pledging to support Taiwan's security. So, what's the solution? Diplomacy has worked in some cases, with nations reaching agreements or sharing resources. The 1978 treaty between the US and Canada over the Gulf of Maine boundary is an example of a peaceful resolution. But in many instances, the disputes continue, fueled by politics, economics, and a deep-rooted sense of national pride. Some nations use historical claims to justify their control, while others rely on military strength to assert dominance. The involvement of global powers complicates matters. when the US sends naval ships through contested waters as a show of force, or when China expands its influence by constructing artificial islands, the risk of escalation increases. The world may have advanced technologically, but the instinct to fight over land, no matter how small, remains as strong as ever. In the end, these tiny islands are much more than dots on a map. They are chess pieces in a global game of power, wealth, and survival. And as long as nations believe these islands hold the key to their future, the battles, whether through war, politics, or economic pressure, will never truly end. The question is not whether wars over islands will continue, but rather, which island will be the next flashpoint in this never-ending geopolitical struggle.